have returned. Ooh, for the first time in forever. Um, yeah. Oh, I haven't been doing much. Genuinely, I have been in my house. I have, I have left my house once since fuck Thursday or Friday. I don't know. It was one of them. It was one of them. I haven't left my house since. And I don't know how to feel. No, no, that was a lie. Left my house like 2 days ago. That was just a flat out fucking lie. Hell yeah. I love my memory. It's great. There are no problems with my memory in the slightest. Hi. Yes, I am alive. I'm doing okay. I'm tired. I'm pretty sure. Um yeah, there are a couple things. But what can you do? How are you doing, Rose? How are you doing? I forgot to turn off No, the captions are funny. The captions are funny. You know what? If they're there, then they're there. And it's pretty entertaining. Not going to lie. The fuck is that? What? I'm fine from what somewhat sentient. That's that's pretty nice. I need to check some quick. Definitely lying. Right? Ah, that's not lying to me. Okay, it's probably fine. It seems to be. Ooh. So I've just found out that my output is 410. Why that's happened, I'm not sure I'll ever know. It's Yeah, it sure is something. It's something. I'll give it that. I'll give it that. It's not much of a compliment, but it's better than nothing. Anyway, I'm not actually sure how the start of today is gonna go because I'm trying yet another um stupid thing. But well, stupid. I'm trying yet another thing, right? I'm trying yet another thing. And I think that's like it should be fine, you know? Yeah. I hope it will be fine. But who really knows if it will be fine, right? Not me, that's for certain. But um but alas, is it gonna work? Is gonna it is good. Oh my god. Yeah, no, so I found the problem with the Why the What the fuck is happening? Oh, okay. So that is an issue. That is an issue. Um oh, I found out why the issue is an issue. It's because it's stretched it for some unknown. There you go. Okay. Okay. I still feel like that's wrong, but it looks less wrong than it did when it was hella zoomed in. So, you know what? It's good enough. Anyway, that is the... Okay. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? I need to know, I need to be made aware. If you can or cannot hear it. Because, you know, it would... Yes? Okay. Okay. Put it down a lot for me. Because I do not wish to go deaf this early on in life. Maybe in a couple years, but not right now. Not at this second. You know? Not as I live and breathe. Maybe, well, I would assume it would be as I live and breathe. Because, you know, when else am I gonna do it, right? But yeah, so this is the proof. We're doing it with no skill points. It is, yeah. It's painful, don't get me wrong. But it's something. It's probably not the best idea I've ever made. I've forgotten that happened every time you exited a level. And that's gonna be something. Anyway. Lava World. Right? Lava World. You would be like, oh, it's not that bad. It is. It is that bad. I fucking hate this. This level is the bane of my fucking existence. I almost set myself on fire. We're not dead yet, and that's quite fun. Okay, we have been hit though. We have been hit. It's like a ship. Like, as soon as you get hit once, it kind of all starts going downhill immediately afterwards, right? You just kind of start drowning immediately. It never gets any better. This will be a lot of doing the same thing over and over again. And me getting angry at myself for doing stupid shit like that. I've just accidentally exited the level. Yeah. Cheers to me. Am I right? It's just practice. It's just practice. That's what it is. This is what it is. It's practice. Oh! Fast. No! That's what I'm talking about. It immediately starts going downhill. As soon after as you get hit, immediately you are on half health. Suddenly, out of nowhere, you've lost 3 limbs. Somebody looks at you with a weapon and you're injured, right? You stand in the same screen as another character and you are on the verge of death. It is something. It is also painful. Painful is one of the things that it is. Painful is the least of what it is. Actually, I've decided. We weren't anywhere. We hadn't gotten anywhere, so it's fine. It's perfectly fine. Ooh. So my mouse has started to... Thank you. I love that. Love that. Actually, that's not terrifying. That's not a terrifying thought. I don't know why it just did that, but it did do that, and now I'm shitting myself. Why is that a thing that can happen? Oh my gosh, we've leveled up. And then drop down to the I can have one. Hello, welcome back. How you doing? Hello, Sloomy. It's a nice name. It's one of those words that are kind of just nice to say. That might just be a me thing. I'm really hoping that I'm not mistaking you for somebody else. That would be embarrassing. Hi. How's your day going? Oh, true. Fair enough. Oh, hell yeah. I'm glad it's not completely shit, at least. How about you? I'm progressively getting more and more I don't know why Castle Crash is so stressful, but it is. But yeah, other than the aggravation of this game, I'm doing pretty well. I am doing pretty well. I got so much fucking chocolate. Like, I have a bar of chocolate that is, I kid you fucking not, the size of, like, my thigh. It is longer than my thigh. It terrifies me. Like, I'm gonna have a ball of a time eating it, but Jesus Christ, it is 850 grams. This is almost a kilogram of chocolate. I am terrified of how much this could have cost. It's not very thick, but it's they spread it out over a large area. Genuinely though, I have not left the house enough. I was gonna go to Tesco earlier, and I was like, why would I go to Tesco? I don't need to go to Tesco. I have there's food in the house, and I have books. Other than maybe stationery. Okay. I'm talking about this because this is very much jumping topic very quickly, but it's fine. You know why? Because I've just remembered. My friends, there's one main group of about 5 people, including me, that you ever be insane? No, I am halfway through an insane thing. I'm on about the same section in insane as I am in this. Oh, I'm getting through it so very slowly, but yeah. So very slowly. But yeah, there's about 5 people, including me, that I'm 4 other people that I'm consistently in groups with, right? Mainly because they drag me to things, and then they introduce me to people. And at first I was like, okay, this is fine. Most of the people you're introducing me to are fine. One of them was a bastard. Another one was also a bastard, but that was through school, not through them, so I don't blame them for it. And then yet another one also through school, also kind of a bitch, not gonna lie. Not gonna fucking lie, right? That's not the problem here. That's not the issue. They keep on making fucking group chats. And then I'm like, oh, some guy keep on making group chats, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Make as many group chats as you want, but they've got all the same people in them. It's the same group chat 17 times. It's like, and it doesn't even start out with all the same people in it. It's like, a couple will have like 1 or 2 different people, and that's fine. I don't tend to talk in group chats that much. It's just, God. Like, it won't start out with people, and then somebody will be like, oh, can we go to this place? Is anybody free then? And then somebody will be like, oh, I'm not, but this person is. Do you mind if we add them to the group chat? And then everybody's just like, yeah, you will have 16 other group chats to discuss this with. 16 others, and they're on all of the others. Why do you need to add them to... It's the same group chat over and over again. Let me be free. Please. I hate this fucking door. It is infuriating. You have to attack it? Yeah, I know, but you also have to, fucking latch onto it, right? You, like, run into it, and you latch onto it, and then you can start attacking it. I hate this fucking game. I hate it so much. That door has caused me so much pain. It's not even all of it, it's just that door. That singular door has caused me, like, emotional turmoil. Yeah, I've also... Okay. My brother and dad, like, collect Warhammer figurines, and they paint them every once in a blue moon. That's fine. My brother got his one in the house again for Christmas, and got, a set that's like, I don't remember the name of it. I was being like, what's the name? I don't remember the name. Yeah. And it's a 5-player game, and coincidentally there are 5 people in our family. So out of all the times my friends have been like, oh yeah, we should play D&D, the only people to have gone through with that is my family. I am now basically playing branded D&D with the people I've lived with my whole life, and with the people that produced me. And yet my friends can't, yeah. You'd also think that it would be easier to, like, set everything up. No. No. It's not. Somehow, despite everything, people can still avoid you. So easily. I realized recently that I've been defaulting to one accent every now and then. Not even like all the time. Just every now and then. I think it's like painfully British. And it's not even like where I stay in the UK when I go over. It's like England British. I know one person that lives in England that I've talked to. How does this happen? How dare it happen? I don't want to be fucking mistook for being English. I'm proud. Not finishing that sentence. But yeah, it's not all the time. It's just every now and then. No, it's not even every now and then. It's just when I say, "Oh my gosh," sometimes it'll just be like, "Yeah, yes, pay attention to me." I did it a couple times on Christmas, and both times my sister and my dad looked at me and was like, "Who the fuck are you? Why are you doing that?" Which was even funnier the second time. I'm about to die. This is sad. I'm going to scream, actually. It was even funnier the second time when they'd already heard me do it and had already reacted to it, but still were like, what the they were still like actively startled by it. Like, genuinely bewildered. I've also gotten just a bar of nougat, which is basically solid sugar. Skeleton time? Yeah. Yeah, I'm basically halfway through with one potion left. This is gonna go fantastically. Point is, good luck, thank you. it might not help, but so what? Thanks. At this point, it's like I'm almost certainly not gonna make it through the rest of the level with one potion, right? But practice, you know? Practice makes something or other. Any of these get food? I'm pretty sure they do, right? Apparently it's mostly money. Not exactly what I need right now. I would like some good snacks. Or fucking not. Or not. Apparently we're just getting money. Which is, you know, it's something. It's probably appreciated. This is fine. Is there less health than the ones earlier? Because that guy died really quickly. Like, incredibly quickly. Over the last 2 days, I've been just kind of painting the Warhammer figurines, right? Because neither my brother nor my father really do it that much, even though they're the ones that collect them. So I was like, you know what, I've nothing else to do, do I? But when I've almost finished painting 7, right? It is taking me at least 12 hours. But my brother has said he'll give me 5 quid. So, the way to go, getting other people to paint your stuff for you because you don't want to, is so fair. If that's not what you're responding to, I don't know. I'm completely fucked. now we're down here. Okay, okay. Didn't know you could still function down here. Was not aware of that fact. You are just in the abyss now. No! I wanted the food. Oh my god. Away we go. And try desperately not to die. Can you use your boomerang to grab food? Can you? No. I don't think I've ever actually used the boomerang. That. Oh my. Just perish, please. Just perish. Just fall over. Cripple yourself. Don't cripple yourself. Just fall over. Do I have a boomerang? I don't have a boomerang. Any item but food is most important? Yes, there. There. Ah yes, do we like our odds going into the boss battle? There's a chest nearby, yeah. We're going into this with not one potion and not full health. This is gonna go great. This is gonna go fantastic. I can feel it in my soul. I have one of those. You have to juggle. I think I'm competent enough to juggle, bro? You think I'm competent enough for this shit? Hey. We got him down to half health. That's... yeah. Hey, now we get to not use all of our potions before going into the last fight, right? Alright, you almost did it? Almost. It was probably a little over half, which isn't bad. Pro tip, don't get hit. Wait, really? Wait, oh my god. Don't get. Never thought of that one before. Sorry. God, I wish I was just at don't get hit levels though. I wish. How can I do more damage to the dragon than these guys? What's that about? What's that about? I don't know what it's about. Okay. That was fantastic timing. I do have to say. That was not so fantastic timing. I do have coffee as like a you tried, get good. You try to have a little treat. A little treat. Coffee is my lifeblood. It's more than a little treat. It's a necessity. Unfortunate, but true. No, okay, this does have to do with my friends creating 17 identical group chats. In one of them, which does, to be fair, have a couple people that aren't in any of the other group chats, or are only in one of the other. Okay, I was not looking at my health. You don't consume coffee, coffee flows through your face. I mean, that is worryingly accurate, yeah. But yeah, and this group of people hadn't been together in a couple months, right? A couple months at least. And that's like, oh, I'd seen everybody from it separately, but I guess people were craving the chaos that was all of us together. And somebody was like, I only have 2 days free, like the 1st and the 2nd, I think they said, or like the 2nd, or something in the 4th, because I know it wasn't the 3rd, but yeah, I think it was the 1st and the 2nd, and everybody was like, yeah, I can probably do that, can probably do something on one of those days. I think it was gonna be the 2nd, because one person could only do the 2nd. And then, like, an hour or two later, after we'd all kind of vaguely gone, yeah, I can do one of those days. Somebody comes in that hadn't responded, was like, are you all free for the 31st? No. We'd just been over that. You can scroll up literally half of... You don't even need to scroll up. It is right there. People have just said when they're free and when they're not. Are you okay? Like, God, it was something to witness, you know? It was genuinely impressive how unable to read. And this person isn't even the dyslexic one. Right? Like, that is... When it gets to that point, it's like, are you genuinely okay? Are you mentally there? Do I need to call a doctor for you? Are you doing okay? Having another song on guitar? Either when I feel like it, or when we hit, what is it, 53? If I finish this level today, I will do a song on guitar. If I don't, I might anyway, just to make myself feel a little happier. For sure. Yeah. Oh, it's probably into it. I think it's into it. I'm almost certain that it's 2. But yeah, hi, how you doing? Oh, I fucking hate this one. Also, question, can you hear my breathing? Like, a lot? can't see that. Like, most of the time I can guess, but it's better to just practice. Hell yeah. Now that I'm not completely incompetent. Oh my... Is that supposed to happen? Just like when... Sometimes when you run in beef, you just can't attack properly. Is that a thing? Or is that just my mouse acting up? We're going great. It's going swell. Yep. Oh my god! You'd think that the fire knight would be better at not getting set on fire. But alas, yeah, it's a glitch? Okay. Because, like, it was a toss-up between that and also my mouse has acted up in the past. Mainly because it's missing, like, half of the mouse. So it could have been either. But no. I got this little, like, lantern thingy to put, like, tea lights in and stuff. And I adored this, like, but apparently one of the last times that I put a tea light in it, I put it too close to the back pane on it, because it's got glass panes on it. It was £2. I'd had it for, like, a week. The reason that it was in a charity shop is because it was like really rusty. But do I look like somebody that gives a shit? The answer is no. Just in case. But yeah, and I put one of the tea lights too close to one of the panels and it exploded. It shattered. It is actively in pieces. Not the entire thing, just that one pane, which is pretty good. To be fair. Now I do have to, like, find a person that does glass things. Or I could be like, hi, can you cut out, like, a mimic of this, please? And or how much would that be? Not even sure if there's one near where I live. There's one like an hour out, I know that, and there's one near where my grandma lives, but she lives in a different country. So, yeah. It's a little out of the way, one may say. I would be the one to say that. Skeleton time! I am close to skeletons. Yeah. I was watching a thing that it was like somebody that like a historian, probably. I'm assuming they were a historian, otherwise they were just very enthusiastic, right? And they were like going over events in Irish history, the majority of which being quite shit, if you couldn't guess. You know, the invading, the murder, the invading, the plantation, the famine. Yeah, it goes quite a bit. And I don't know if it was in the video or in the comments. Just yes, the luck of the Irish, quite bad. Why are the skeletons bleeding? Sorry, no, I'm distracted. Why did that skeleton have blood? Why are they all bleeding? They're skeletons. Why is this? They should not have blood. It should not be red. It should be little bone chips. Very different color. Very, very different color. Can confirm. It's just quite radically different to red, actually. Not sure if you noticed. Bones got red in most cases. I'm sure there's somebody out there with red bones. That's quite concerning, by the way. But the majority of us, quite pale bones, or a little red tinted, one may say, because you know, blood. Yeah, we have it. Why did the skeletons bleed when you hit them though? Why are these guys bleeding? They're literally cauterizing themselves as we speak. Like that one slug that was found to live in volcanoes. I'm not actually sure if that was a real thing. I was just kind of like, oh, cool fact. So you just never actually look up if it was a thing or not. I'm like 3% sure it was true. There's gotta be something that lives in volcanoes, you know? Maybe these guys. Maybe just really deep down it's these guys. Maybe. Just keel over, please. Please, I'm in such a better place. Not such a better place. I'm in a technically better place, though. I still have the last oh no, I lose the potion here, don't I? Do I? I don't remember. Well, potion usage has been about the same. That's an issue. What, it was about the skeletons that started going downhill? But yeah, I'm doing genuinely virtually nothing for the end of the year. But I'm just chilling. That went much smoother. That section went much better than the last time. Which isn't saying much, right? But it's saying something. It's saying something, and that is that I am improving, even if only slightly, which is better than nothing. I got out of school, I've forgotten your... Like, God, I've forgotten it as well. I barely even registered that it was Thursday. I was just like, oh, what day is it? And then I got a notification being like, oh, you have a couple minutes. Then, oh. Just a moment of, oh, fuck. What do I do? A moment of, oh. Well then. It's Thursday, I thought is it Friday? Is it Friday? Fuck! Oh. Oh, this is going poorly. Oh! Oh, it was going so okay. Is it Friday? No, it's Thursday. It was going so vaguely middle of the road, and you're done. Yes, I am done. I did in fact just get absolutely demolished. A sad day. A sad day, you know? Not one of the best. One of the sadder days. Imagine me dying in Castle Crashers. It's never happened before. This is the first time, I promise. I promise this is the first time I've died in Castle Crashers. Nobody can ever cite a time where I've died in Castle Crashers before. I am a god at this game. I've never ever perished. Other than that moment. Yep. I simply don't die. I'm simply too good for that. Stop blaming me. It's uncalled for. I haven't even insulted your mother yet. No, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never died in this game before. Least of all this level. It's just not happened. It's just not happening. I think you're thinking of somebody else. I think you're thinking of... Oh, I died. No, I'd never lie to you, Sloomy. I'd never lie to you. Never. It's not a thing that happens. I'm the most trusted, the person that you could trust most. One may say very trustworthy in this entire platform. You literally spent 4 hours in the same level and the same. That's a difference. What are you talking about? No, I haven't. No, I haven't. Never before heard of. I would not. Why did I use a potion there? Why would I do that? I have never died in insane mode. What are you on about? No, doesn't happen. Or am I thinking of somebody else? Yeah. Somebody else. I wish I was good at this game. But that would make it so much more boring if I was, you know, good at things. It wouldn't be as funny. No, genuinely, I never really sleep well. And yeah, you're right, I don't know. I'm just kind of always tired. It's just, I'm just perpetually exhausted, right? That's probably a thing I should look into, but I'm not going to, because why would I? And it's gotten to the point where I'm just kind of, I'm like one of the best players and it's really boring. Exactly! Heard it from them themselves. Look at that. It's boring when you're good at the game. It's so very boring. Yeah, it's gotten to the point where there was a chopstick on the floor in public. I looked at it and as I walked by, I just mumbled quality content to myself. I don't know why. I could not tell you. Bunny Plus does. Any fun with friends? None of my friends play them. My laptop won't run it, which is fair. So why would I get Steam? Why would I get Epic? Why would I get any of these things that give out free games sometimes? Why would I do that? Why? Probably would be more fun with friends. But alas, all of my friends are fucking losers. God. They actually have lives and shit? What is this? Like, God, imagine going outside. I don't even believe that house anymore. It's genuinely sad. But to be fair, school. Got less homework for the holidays than I thought I would. It was very odd. Very, very odd. And I'm like, oh, Winnie has trouble pulling that sign. Yes, no, I remember that. I was there. Yeah, because I thought you kind of just had to push yourself into it until it clicked into place. Apparently you can just start beating the shit out of it and it'll click into place for you. Nobody bothered to mention this while I was having a breakdown over this one fucking door. Not a single soul. Several of which I know play Castle Crashers on the regular, or at least did, were there and were just content to watch me lose my mind over this door. It is the bane of my existence. You should know these things. I never really had to think about it before, and then it stopped working. You know? Like every now and then it would be like, oh, this is taking a little long. But then it would just like, I don't know. You've been playing this? Yeah. Yeah, to be fair, I was a child when I started playing this. Like, you'd think that I would be better by this point. I'm really not. It's only really gone downhill, but that might be because there are no older siblings to get us to the end. You know? It's just one of those things that I didn't really have to think about it, and then so when I actually had to think about it, I didn't know what to do. It's like having very little when we started playing this game, yeah. It's just that some of us improved and clearly, some of us didn't. You know? Me, for example, has not improved. Probably. I don't actually remember it. I just remember that it was fun. It was just a good time for child me. I haven't lost my glasses yet, though. That's quite the achievement, I would say. But yeah, it's like when you become conscious of your own breathing, and you try to breathe like in a consistent rhythm, you know? And you just, it's harder. And like, obviously I've had more practice breathing than I have had opening that one door in Castle Crashers. So, you know, it's not the best comparison, but it's the one that I'm sticking with, you know? Or notice when you're blinking, yeah. It's like that. The other day, I was like, it was the first time in a while that I was like, oh, I need I desperately need to use my eye drops because I blinked and it was bliss. It was it was a moment away from the agony of my eyeballs, you know? That is genuinely one of the only moments recently where I've been like, blinking. Yes! It wasn't a fun moment. But, oh, what's caused this then? There's some moments where it hurts, but you can't really do anything about it. But yeah. Oh my, you piece of shite. Getting cyberbullied by an AI. This counts as cyberbullying, right? I think it should. I think Elden Ring was really just the game devs really wanted to bully a lot of people at the same time. There's a whole bunch of people. Like Dark Souls, that's just mass bullying. It's just Apple. They're not spamming fireballs, are they? They were. I fucking hate when that happens. Because it's like, it's fine when I do it. Well, not when the AI start doing it back. That's just not okay. How many do we... 2. Okay. We're in a very mildly better position than we were. Well, we are actually in an 100% better position. Well, no. If it was 100% better, then we'd have full health as well. Don't use your potion yet? Nah. Enjoy the music. Have a little dot to yourself. Thank you. Things are functioning vaguely, which is better than things not functioning, you know? They're better, it's a marked improvement from things not functioning, right? But things still function better, you know? Could always function better. Look. Normally actually throwing, not really throwing things, but like aggressively putting things on the floor. Wait a second. Alright. Yeah. I agree with this one more. Because the music's like constant, right? The sound effect's not constant. Okay. Listen here, you twat. Sometimes I really do hate ramming. It's like, I know you're just doing your job, but god, it's obnoxious. Yeah. Yeah, fuck you. What? Why have you not fallen over? That was a little bit of a delayed reaction, one may say. Okay, 2 potions, almost full health, about to be full health, about to be very full health, about to be the fullest health you've ever seen, you've ever witnessed in your life, if I could line myself up with the chest. There are some chests that I just did not know you could lock in. I'm not gonna place all my bets on it, because you know, I've been known to die even with 5 potions. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Better than nothing. Better than nothing. Not better than nothing. But hey, better than dead. Fuck. This is so incredibly stressful. This is fine. This is perfectly fine. I'm actively ducking in real life. This is becoming a problem. It's over! Oh my god, it's over! I'm free from Lava World! Oh, thank god. Let's go! It only took me like an hour. That's... Donate? I don't have a donate. I don't know how to do taxes. So, yeah. Also not... Yeah. Not even legally able to do taxes for Twitch. I appreciate the sentiment, though. Hey! Anyway. I do believe I told somebody that I'd do a song. Oh my god, free me, please. So, we'll do... Oh my god, you can hear my breathing. Why did nobody mention this? There you go. Very, very legible. There you go. Like real people do, I guess. That one's the only one that I know of that doesn't need a capo. And isn't very loud. Fuck. Okay. That is an issue. Properties. Not properties. Filters. Okay, I've moved you a little bit away from my face, otherwise literally every click my jaw made would be picked up. but that's fine. I had a thought, dear, however... Fuck. Wait, how can I position this so I'm not actively choking myself? I had a thought, dear, however scary, about that night, the bugs and the dirt. Why were you digging? What did you bury before those hands pulled me from the earth? I hate these notes. I will not ask you where you came from. I will not ask, and neither could you. Honey, just put your sweet lips on my lips. We should just kiss like real people do. Fuck. I knew that look, dear, eyes always seeking, was there in someone that dug long ago. I will not ask you why you were creeping in some sad way. I already know. I will not ask you where you came from. I will not ask, and neither could you. Honey, just look your sweet lips on my lips. We should just kiss like real people do. Woo! Now we turn the noise gate so that while you can still hear some of my breathing, it's not all of it. Some is better than literally all. But yeah, that's that. I did fuck up quite a few times. It's been a bit since I played. There's that. We get rid of that. Thank you. It is. That is probably the one that I've done the most, but also not in all. Also, the only one that I can confidently actually sing, which is nice, I guess. Anyway, Castle Crashers. Oh no, we have to do the Industrialist Castle. Oh, that's disgusting. Also, to go into a fucking shop. Okay, this is all fine. Oh, all fine and dandy. I almost learned how to play that. And then I messed up my hand. And I forgot how to play it. L. This is going to be hell, genuinely. Mainly because of that, not gonna lie. Mainly because of all these fucking bastards. This has gotta be lighter than these. Oh my god. Well, that lasted long. It's fine. It's perfectly a-okay, right? This is gonna go perfectly fine. That wasn't. Yeah, we're winning actually. Money. And food, God, spoiling. It's more than I can ask for. Money and food. More than most people can afford. So to be fair, I do not think the knight has a house. I am uncertain onto if the knight has a house or needs a house. Maybe they're being given like free residency somewhere because they're knights. Maybe. Perhaps. I used to do Spanish. I'm not very good at it, right? Not really. I'm not good at language. But at one point in Spanish class, we were learning off the thing because it was like a dialogue that we had to have. It wasn't that we had to learn it off, it was just that was the easiest way. We did not have the vocabulary to come up with it on the spot. This was in fourth year. In our fourth year of learning Spanish, we did not have the vocabulary to answer fucking where would you like to live? That was how bad it was. But alas, somebody on my table, I would not say that we were all friends, but we were all friendly, right? Somebody had an aneurysm that porque was both why and because. That broke them. They're like, why is there a porque here and then a porque over here? Why? And they just genuinely, like, they needed, it was hilarious to watch, but also pretty fucking concerning, you know? That's how good our education is. 14. Not 14. Fourth year. 15 and 16-year-olds. Not knowing the word for because and why. Yep. That's how fantastic our education is. Probably not even our education. I think it's just our school. Our school's, it's, let me put it this way, not the best. There are 3 other schools in like the region. Let's go with it. Out of all of them, I think 2 have applied maths as a subject, and at least 2 course like automatically you're in higher maths, and you can then drop. Our school, we barely have, in all of the senior years, we have about 40 students doing higher level maths. Out of hundreds of students, of 40. That is the level at which our school teaches us. To be fair, one of those teachers is teaching, what, 30 people currently? There are 2 classes one of which is in and around, okay, to be fair, I'm pretty sure it's closer to 15, but still, we don't have a physics class in our year. Like, what's happened there? Oh my fucking, okay. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to this level. You just got fucking one punch. This is going to be delightful. If I say anything else, I'm lying. This is going to be the best. Oh god, what's the fucking sound going to be like? That's just one of my like voice lines now. Just listen here, you tap. I say it far too often. Far too. Coffee break. Forgot that happened. Not really forgot, but you know. It's the sentiment that counts, right? But yeah, genuinely, we don't have a physics class. Like, we're in a couple months not going to have a music teacher for leading certain music. It's falling apart at the seams. Not even the seams. There are holes all throughout the fabric, and the seams are just now. The seams were the strongest part. There's this huge fucking wall in the school, right? They decided this year to paint it vomit green. I don't know why they decided that was the color they would go for, but it looks like somebody that was painting decided not to paint it with paint, instead decided to combine. You're not gonna have a music class? No, we're still gonna have a music class, there's just not going to be somebody to teach us, because she's going on maternity leave in, I think, March. So that's nice, right? And the other music teacher that could teach leaving cert music is still not in the country. I think they're trying to find somebody to do it, but we have, I think, one other music teacher in our school who hasn't been teaching for long enough to teach leaving cert level music, I don't think. But yeah, it looks like instead of painting it with a nice paint, they painted it with their own vomiting piss. They just got a bucket, threw up in it, pissed at it, mixed it together, then painted the wall with it. That is what it looks like. Genuinely, it is the ugliest color that anybody could have come up with. Oh, this isn't good. Like, it's a color, that's for certain. Though I'm not sure many people would classify it as such. I don't think many people would want to. I think genuinely they were hoping that it was more green, less puke. But it's not more green, less puke, it's a little more puke than green. It's impressive. somebody looked at that and was like, hell yeah, let's go for that colour on this huge fucking wall. Let's go for this very, very ugly colour on this huge part of the building. Because the last, just white wasn't fine. Just grey, no. Just a nice lime green, even. A nice dark green. To be fair, not our school colours. Our school colours have nothing to do with green. They're yellow and blue. Why green, you may ask? I don't know. This is going fantastically. I've not died at the same place twice in a row now. No. I have a fantastic time. Yep. Yeah. Oh, I didn't. I have been gifted deck cards as well. I mean, they're very fun. I like them a lot. One of them technically I think supposed to be a magic deck. But I'm not good enough card tricks to do that. So it's just gonna be a normal card deck. One of the others, very pretty, very nice deck of cards. Confusingly enough, though, normally the aces are like, they have a similar theme to each other, but a different theme to the rest of the cards, other than the face cards. Sometimes even different from those, right? Usually that theme being really big. Usually the suit shape on the card, on the ace card, really big. And now, as I saw the first ace, I was like, okay, it's very pretty art and a very big, spade? Very cool. And then I just kind of rifle through the deck. It's only one of 4 aces with that. It's only the ace of spades that has the kind of fancy art and the bigger suit. Okay. For emblem. And it was vaguely confusing, but you know what? Artistic choice, I guess. What you want. I certainly can't stop you, you know? I thought that pause was longer. I picked up my cup of coffee. That turned out to be a mistake. Ooh. Vaguely infuriating, but it's fine. We didn't die at the same place, so that's better. We only have 2 potions. We can take no hits from the big fella. None. Otherwise we will immediately keel over. Not a dramatization. Not hyperbole. No. It's the truth. just the truth. Okay, this fucking bastard. Oh, you piece of shit! I think I get too invested in this game, right? I think there's a little too much attachment going on. Okay. Oh, they've all short swords this time. Why are they called fencers then? If they can all spawn. Oh, okay. Okay, that's just embarrassing. That's just embarrassing. That was just a little embarrassing. It's fine. Okay. I am great at dodging, and I'm definitely not tired. Not in this. Why would you ever think that me tired? Not a thing. Give me a second. I realised I muted before I finished. Okay, I have returned. I've decided that the like 6 days between like the 6 days at the end of the year, really the last week and a half at the end of the year. It's just not, they're not real, are they? You know? It's just people don't really care. They're just like, oh, when's the year gonna? It's like too long to be like, oh yeah, I can do nothing, but too short to be like, oh, I can do lots of things. Time just doesn't exist, right? It just doesn't. I am either always shit at that or always great at that. There's no in between. Where I get hit like once and then recover. It's always either I get hit by 7 in a row or none at all. There is no middle ground. It just doesn't exist. We're not doing great, I will not lie, but we're not doing completely shite either. Full health, blood potion. A couple more people left. Okay. Could have moved, not gonna lie. That was on me. That's on the rest of it though. Not my fault in the slightest. Definitely. Shouldn't have done that. It's okay. I can just pretend it never existed in the first place. You know? Like, just pretend that it was never really a thing. Oh, and my fucking range is gonna be shit as well. Oh, and I do 1 damage. One whole damage. Ooh. Ooh, this is gonna be riveting. Aren't you? Ooh. Ooh, this is quality content. Ooh. Nothing supersedes this. Ah. 3 damage per minute? Back here. Oh god, the necromancer fight is going to be hell. Not used all your skill points. Really? Hadn't fucking noticed. Oh no, oh god. Can you buy bombs at this point? I feel like you probably can, right? Yes, you can. 5, 6. Oh my god, you can get 9 bombs. It's like the same thing with the sandwiches. I just assumed that it would be the same number as the potion. I feel like I should stop assuming that though, seeing as recently it's just been wrong. Okay. Well then. Well then. Okay. I am the oldest of my friend group, just because when I was born. You know, as most people are the oldest because. And there's a group that I've had since primary. And yeah, I'm the oldest, but the other 2 are they're like within weeks of each other, right? And none of us are 18 yet, but we will be in the future. And the middle one, their mother won't let them go into Dublin with us, which, okay, I guess. Their mother, who grew up in Dublin, won't let us go into Dublin together. And like, okay, sure, not the most unreasonable thing. Both of this person's parents won't let them walk home from the park, which is 5 minutes from their house. all, like, not 18, but getting pretty fucking close to it. Not allowed to walk home from the park. What the fuck? There's like a line that's reasonable. That's not on it. That is in fact quite a bit over the line of reason. And it's also not like we've never been into Dublin before. The other two of us have been quite often. Their mother knows this. So yeah, it is just a little odd. It's like what? It is one train from where we live to get into Dublin. And sure, just to get to the train station. Oh no. What a travesty. They'll never survive. Also just genuinely kind of concerning, because what is this person going to do once they're 18 and they move out at some point and suddenly they have to do everything themselves and they don't know how to do simple shit like get a train ticket by themselves? What happens then? It's not even like they're 100%, oh yeah, no, this is fine. They've actively been like, it's a 5-minute walk, please, just let me walk home, this is stupid. Like, on the phone, being like, it's fucking stupid for you to get in the car and pick me up. It is a 5-minute walk. What are you on about? Yeah, it's gonna be fun to see the fallout of that. Fuck. 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 This is what I mean. If I fuck up once, I fuck up too dead. I do not recover from messing up on the fucking thingies. I don't recover from it. It doesn't happen. It's an impossibility. It just does not happen. It can't happen. It's actively, not possible. I don't know why. It's just not. I got a weighted blanket. It is delightful. Except for, okay, so I have fun facts and circulation problems. Not sure what they are, but they're there. I'm aware they're there because I'm the one living in my own body, right? I fucking hope I am anyway. Yeah, basically, my hands and feet are always fucking freezing. When I get too hot, I don't cool down. All that fun stuff. When I'm too cold, I don't get very warm. I've actively almost, like, my fingers have gone completely numb before. It's a fun time. It's not a fun time when, there are blankets on the bed and the bed will not cool down, so you cannot go to sleep. You actively get out of the bed, roll all the blankets back, fucking go sit somewhere else for half an hour, and it's still fucking boiling. So yeah, that's delightful. There's like warm, and then there's too warm. It's a very thin line. A very, very thin line. Coffee time! Sorry, had to blow out a candle. Was getting a little low, so I didn't want to burn. Oh. I've been given 3 books for Christmas. One of which I will not read. One of which I already have. The third of which I'm pretty dubious on why they're giving it to me. A little odd, but okay. A little odd, but fine. You know, I'll read it. I'm just confused as to why exactly. Random folks. Just not in the street. I won't. Not in the street. Question. This is because I've just blown out the candle. Why does like candle smoke, cigarette smoke, and match smoke smell so different? And why does candle smoke smell the worst? I don't understand, right? I don't think I ever will understand. Like, obviously it's because they're like made out of different things, yeah? Why does candle smoke smell the worst? It's like so bitter and like here, like cigarette smoke, unlike other smoke will like cling to your clothes. Candle smoke like clings to the top of your nose. Not to like the top of your mouth or the back of your mouth, the top of your nose. Which is worse. It's like, okay, fine, tasting it for a while. Smelling it for like 5 minutes afterwards? No, I did not agree to this. We were doing so well. How much health does your man have? F? Yeah. No, that seems like a pretty common thread, actually. F seems like a pretty common thread. Okay. Why? This is fine. This is perfectly okay, one may say. They do so much damage. Oh yeah. No, I've realized. Wait, the bombs or the big ones? The large ones. What the fuck was that? Fucking Batman? What was that? 3 times the length of your body jump. Simultaneously jump. Look at that. Oh my... I am losing my fucking mind. It hasn't even been 2 hours yet. I am losing my mind. God, you miss one day. One silly little day. And suddenly you're bad. There's nothing that good. What's the last? It's that good. Nothing I can do about it now. I found the man. I need more blue light in my system. I'm getting tired. Ridiculous. The story of my life. This is fine. The beats of the boys. We're going to beat all the boys, you know. Oh wow, such a convenient time to level up. God, I'm gonna be level 99 by the time I'm like at new moon. Full moon? Moon. Not a nickname. That from? Sorry. My dear, I'm dead on the floor and we're a million miles away. Fun fact, if I do just start like jumping from song to song, that's one because I am so out of it. I don't know why. It's not even really tired. I'm just not a brain day. And two, I'm at least vaguely trying to focus. You know, it's a toss-up between those two. It will happen. You have been warned. It will most likely live over and over again. Maybe car lights. Maybe even, I can't remember the name of the song. Viva La Vida. That's the name of the song. Who knows? Maybe I'll spice it up a little bit. Maybe I'll throw in maybe. Maybe not. It's a surprise for everybody. Me, mostly. Something. The bane of my existence right after that one fucking door. What? Did that to myself. Literally did it to myself. Sweep the streets I used to own. 1 minute I held the key. Next the walls were closed on me, and I discovered that my castle stands. My castle stands upon pillars of salt and pillars of sand. I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry cries are singing. In my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in a forest field. For some reason I can't explain, once you've gone, there was never an honest word. And that was when I ruled the world. Puppet on a lonely string. my mirror, my sword and shield. I'm missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain. Once you're gone, there was never heaven on this world. And that was when I ruled the world. Oh my god. Oh my god, just fall over and die actually, thanks. You didn't just fucking fall. No! It didn't even work! It didn't even fucking work in the long run. Oh my god, it just takes a little over 9 fucking bombs. Just a little over 9 bombs. No biggie. No biggie. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? As I watch it go by, you will take to reassure. I keep asking myself why, and if there's me on the other side of the eye. Now when I see the bitch that you are now. This is gonna take a fucking while, right? Okay, listen here, you piece of shite. Hell yeah. Oh. Let me just aggressively click. Why are you still exploding? That's a little dramatic, let's be honest here, mate. That's a little I forgot that I literally had not hit this one. Okay, listen here, you piece of shit. Oh, it does 3. Oh, it does. It does a whole. I promise you, a whole 3 to shoot it. You know what that is? Quite shit. Quite shit. This might be the longest this fella will ever take to beat. Fuck me. Fuck you too, mate. Fuck you too. Actually remove yourself from my life. No, I have to do it all again. Oh. Oh, and it's just gonna get worse. Oh, was this really worth it? Was it? Every now and then I think to myself and I'm like, oh, the life choices I made aren't that bad. And then I remembered that this is what I'm doing with my day. I could be reading. I could be studying. No. Instead I'm here losing to fake people. In a fake game to make fake money. And I'm going fake broke. You know you're the problem when even in a fake economy, you are almost broke. You are the issue. Maybe you're the issue because you're going around killing so many people. You ever think about it like that? You ever mash those two fucking brain cells together? Maybe cause a little bit of friction in your skull. Maybe think that you're the problem. I'm losing my fucking... What are the lyrics to Viva La Vida? Because evidently I don't remember the second verse. Right? So instead of focusing on the game as I should be, we're gonna look it up. Without pausing the game, right? This is my skill. It's like 10 letters. So I'm not actually certain to call it a skill, but you know, it is to me. I don't have many of these. Lyrics, 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 lyrics. Not in Spanish. Just give me the fucking lyric. Okay, evidently it's no longer a skill. This is fun. Okay, sorry, it's the third verse that I didn't know actually. Wild wind blew down the doors to let me in. Shattered windows and the sound of drums. People couldn't believe what I'd become. Revolutionaries wave from my head on a silver plate. Just a puppet on a lonely string. Oh, who would ever wanna be king? Are trying. You know what? That's literally all I can give. All that it is. That is the start and end. You know? That is... Ooh. Hey. Fuck. I'm going to go fucking insane. Okay. Unfortunate realization. I'm at the end of my fucking rope. Let me be free. Please. Please. I just want to be free. I just want freedom. I just want freedom. I don't know why I started this stupid fucking challenge, but it's going nowhere. It's going fucking nowhere. I'm losing my fucking mind. Hi, I do this Mondays, Thursdays and Fridays at 7 PM GMT. Every now and then I'll miss a day, as I did on Monday, but I'll always put on the Discord that I will either be very late or that I will not be there. If that is something that you are interested in knowing or chatting with other people, is exclamation Discord. If you're new and you've enjoyed my very fast descent into insanity, maybe consider a follow. I appreciate it. I do other stuff if you couldn't tell, because I would have genuinely lost my mind if I only did Castle Crashers. Have a good, have a good day. Thank you. But yeah, I do Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Next time I do this will be tomorrow at 7 p.m. GMT, unless something goes wrong, which I will put on the Discord. Don't know what we'll be doing, but it sure will be something. Have a lovely rest of the day, however long that will be. I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye bye. Bye bye bye. Fuck, that's longer than I thought it was. Bye bye.